I like the challenge. Like as parent myself, there's a lot of things to think about how to teach your own kids and how you bring them to the world. Now there's time for some Q&A. Any questions? This time I want to throw you a microphone. Let's start here.
I was kind of curious as to how you thought that innovation, not necessarily in the technology, but when the use of technology sort of takes over the human element, that the music program, for example, can replicate something that somebody else has done, but it can't necessarily, from what I held that you showed, do something and say, oh, well, what if I add 20th century jazz and make it necessarily like fluid? So how do you think, and it would be the same with like legal stuff, how do you think innovation is going to be integrated into this when a lot of the steps are no longer being done by somebody who's going, oh wait, it's just something that's sort of following directions?
Yeah, well, basically I think that programming or these kind of helpful computer programs, they will be tools for a long while still. With music, it's of course, I gave you like a really kind of, the example that I thought was one of the most mind-blowing. A computer can individually do this, but basically, of course, in these days, most of the music is done with computers, with their help. They make it faster for you to try out different things. If you have like a big creative idea, the computer programs help you try a jazzy version about that, or they make make it easier to come up with different beats. But then it's still the person who kind of has the artistic vision of what they want to do. But was there something about innovation that you wanted me to clarify on?
Well, like innovation tends to happen when somebody runs into something that is unusual or doesn't work, or they want to know why it's done this way, and that often happens in the process, not once the process is done.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sort of curious how, like, if you can see, because you've looked at this a lot, how that element can still be integrated when it's not people actually doing.
Yeah, I think it's still mostly people running into problems, but it's funny, we actually, already in the 80s, they had this kind of robot called the innovation machine. The name is pretty, blunt, innovation machine. But this machine knew all of the physical laws, like about how, about gravity and friction and stuff like that. And it knew all the patents that people had put in the patent databases at that stage. And this machine could actually make inventions, but people had to tell the machine what kind of problem we want to solve. For example, there was this Polish guy who wanted to make a pizza box, which would keep the pizza more warm and for a longer time, but also not make the pizza go like soggy. You mean like wet when because you keep the pizza too long in the box, it will become a bit moist and not crisp. And it told the computer program that I want to solve this problem. And the computer program thought about the physical laws and how moisture goes in the box and how temperature keeps inside. And it actually came up with a design for the box that it has the bottom does not have to be flat, but it has to be a curve like this. And then there has to be this kind of pyramid kind of shaped things that hold the pizza like this. And then it says something about how the box should be ventilated. And with this kind of new box, it was only like maybe 10% more expensive to produce, but it kept the pizza like warm like 15 minutes longer, and it made it like 60% crispier or something. And that was like really, and the guy has the patent for this box. He made it in the 80s, and this guy has the patent, even though the computer did the solution. So it's
Is there a question? I would like to ask tell me about the experience, like from educators, kind of after the void 2016, like and kind of kids and kind of what's been kind of the response and how people reacted to it.
Yeah, I'm thinking what you're asking is that since we are telling teachers that in 2016 you need to start teaching programming, that what has been the response when we're kind of telling them that and telling them that it's a cool thing, and even though you're 55 and you have never programmed and you like to knit, then you still need to start teaching programming. The response has been mixed. Most people know enough about programming that they think that it's kind of difficult to do on a high level. And that's true. It's not easy to become a world star programmer. But our main message for the teachers is that you don't need to know how to program to be able to inspire kids about programming. For example, on the, when you're 6 or 7 or 8 years old, on those grades 1 to 2, they are not teaching the kids how to write computer languages. They are teaching the kids how to give the kind of orders that you need to use when you write computer's program. For example, the teacher might be mimicking a robot like this. And the kids would kind of they would be given a task to make the teacher robot close this laptop. And the first thing is that the kids will say like, robot, close the laptop. And the robot will go like this. And then they will say like, robot, grab the laptop, the screen. And the robot will go And then they have to understand that the commands have to be like more algorithmic, like more simple. And then finally, maybe the teacher might decide that when the kids realize that they have to say to the teacher that, teacher robot, raise your right hand. Teacher robot, put your right hand 20 centimeters forward. Put it like on the right, open your palm, put your hand down, close your palm, pull your hand back, this kind of orders. And then they realize that, kind of with machines, you have to break the problem down into smaller bits. And they don't even know that this has to do with programming, but they kind of learn this kind of thinking. And then when they go to the grades 3 to 6, they do this kind of stuff. And only in the grades 7 to 9, they start doing the courses where you actually write some stuff. And you can do that online. The teacher does not have to know how to write the code. Teacher has to know which kind of online courses you have and kind of go through the lessons with the kids. So this is the message that we're trying to get through, that we cannot have like tens of thousands of teachers who are really good at programming, but they need to be curious about it, very excited about it, so they can just kind of make the kids exposed to the fact that there is this thing called programming. And those kids who are really into it, they will then of course kind of realize that I'm good with this, and they will go home, they will download some computer stuff like programming language packages from the internet and start programming with Eclipse or Sublime Text, and go on about their ways.
Thanks.
Could you say a bit more about why girls should learn programming? Is it just that everybody should learn it, or would the world be different if girls knew how to program?
Well, as I told you, I think that programming is changing the world, and that means that when programming is changing the world, the people doing the programming are changing the world, and we cannot afford to have only 50% of the people having the ability to change the world. If you go, like for example, in Tampere, we have this company called Vincit. They just won the best place to work in their own category, and they are a programming house. And these guys have like 1% of the applicants for the programming jobs are women at the moment. That's like ridiculous, 1%. Like, are you kidding me? And when you start teaching programming at elementary school, everyone gets a chance to learn it. And I'm sure we will have like a, 20, 30, 40, and eventually 50% will be girls. Hopefully 55 at some point. But I just think that it's necessary. Just like in Muslim countries, they are kind of lacking behind in development, since they're only using 50% of their workforce, and they keep women, out of the work life. That we cannot afford to do that kind of stuff with programming.
Okay.
How much will it be taught in schools actually? Like, is there a fixed amount per month or per grade, and what is the amount of coding in schools?
Yeah, the question is about how much it will be taught in schools. This is something that I'm a bit worried about, since we don't have any fixed kind of hourly kind of stuff that how much you have to teach programming. It will be kind of intertwined with different subjects, and it will be hugely about the individual teachers and individual principals, because the Finnish school system is it gives a huge amount of liberty for the teachers, and that's a good thing. That is why we are very top in the world with teaching, because we let the teachers decide what is best for each class. But I'm kind of worried that the teachers who don't think that coding is important, the principals who don't think that coding is important, in those schools the first years are going to be rough, because no one is actually kind of looking after this. The only thing we can do is, as parents, we can kind of be kind of worried that our kids need to learn programming, and then parents can kind of call the principal that, I think that you guys are not implementing this change that we have in the curriculum.
Can you tell me something more about experiences with teaching coding in other parts of the world?
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, we are in Finland. We're in the first group of countries doing this. There are some countries which are like ahead of us. For example, Great Britain. Just like 8 months ago, they decided that this needs to happen now. And David Cameron, their prime minister, just gave like a big order that next fall we're going to start this. And this fall they started it. And that's something that I think we need in Finland, this kind of ability to kind of decide and execute stuff. Estonia is also doing great stuff with this. They're doing great stuff with everything regarding IT. Estonia is going to be going past us in a few years in many levels because they're just so agile and so quick to implement changes. And their president is tweeting all the time. He's very, prone to do stuff with IT. And I think we need that kind of thinking in Finland as well. And I'm not seeing it much enough enough. Singapore is over there as well, with those countries doing stuff about this. And then many more countries are kind of lagging a bit behind. But those are a few, like 3 countries which have a profile of doing this stuff, besides Finland as well.
And are you collaborating with them or learning from each other?
Of course, yeah. With Linda, when we started working on this project, we went to London. They had this skills conference there where people kind of gather around from around the world to kind of see what different people are doing with this. There, they were kind of, me and Linda would go like, hi, we would like to know how you guys are teaching programming. And the other countries were like, just a candid camera, like Finnish people are coming here to ask us about how to educate. You guys are the best educators in the world. Are you, like, why are you here? Are you like mocking us or something? And we were, no, we really need to know what you, because in this thing we're not as good as you yet. So we asked the British people or the Estonian people, but but this is like kind of the governmental organizations are not very kind of agile. They are used to thinking that we change the curriculum every 10 years. And then we make a little bit of change and we're very happy with that change, and then they don't realize that big things are happening and we need to make big changes and deal with the pain.
But in the early days of personal programming was taught, at least in Lukio.
Yeah. And we have it as a subject that you can kind of choose if you want, but then you only get the people who are really into it, and usually the people who choose programming, they're the ones who are kind of actually better than the teacher. They will, just go about their days and, laugh about what the teacher is trying to teach them, and it's a very tiny percentage. Yes, and back.
Yeah, you said they started to do something in the UK, but do you know examples? What does it mean in practice? What are they doing right now?
They are doing it faster and a lot more than us. They have actual curriculum for programming where they list like there's a couple pages of stuff that you really need to learn each year. They have it as their own subject, like algorithm thinking, and they have a lot, they have an actual curriculum. We are just saying that we have a few lines in our curriculum sketch, and it's just very up to the teachers. So we'll see which model, has better results. But I think in the beginning, their model is going to be better since it actually forces teachers to do stuff. And they have this model where they hire kind of 200 master teachers. So 200 people are going to be going through Britain and teaching teachers how to teach programming. And we are yet to kind of decide how are we going to go about educating teachers about this. And that's why what me and Linda are doing, we're kind of trying to kind of get people to wake up and kind of, start realizing that we have a couple of years now to kind of make this work. You had a question?
Yeah. My question comes from a position of total ignorance about coding, and I guess I'm just curious what you can do, or like to stick with the language analogy, if you start learning a new language, it doesn't take too long before you can have a basic conversation with someone.
Yeah.
And like, what can you actually do that's between, making a cat walk and say something silly, and these the robots that can be taught to sort trash, after a couple of months learning, what can you actually do?
Yeah. Basically, to be really honest, it takes years to become a programmer who can actually do stuff in the work life which is actually kind of really productive and that you can actually use in that kind of environment, teaching robots and stuff. It's becoming easier and easier because we get these tools. Like programming has not been around it's only been around for like 50 years or something. So we're really young in this kind of field where we tell computers what to do. So I think in 100 years there will be really developed tools for people, really easy to use tools, to tell computers what to do. At this moment, this is like I'm not saying that you can kind of spend 1 hour an evening just after work, and then after a few months you will be really good with this. So at this moment, I was trying to get my point across, that you really need to this is an area that you want to know something about to be able to perform in modern society, and a good language analogy would be the English language. Like 100 years ago, you didn't need to know English in Finland. You could, come by perfectly well without knowing English. But these days in the work life, there is no young people who don't know English, and it's a requirement for most jobs, or many jobs. And I think that it will not be a requirement to be a very good programmer in the future, but it will be a requirement to kind of understand about how databases work, and what computer programmers do, and have the basic understanding, because that's a part of so many things that people do for a living.
Still time for our last question. I'm just giving a big hand to